Inventory Visibility Service. My name is Hiren Nayak and I will be moderating this session today. This session is being recorded on behalf of Microsoft Corporation. At today's Tech Talk, and as all other events at Microsoft, we just wanted to remind everyone to celebrate our diversity and be inclusive with everyone attending by being aware, friendly, respectful, patient, and welcoming. To co-present today's Tech Talk, I am joined by Jaicheng Jia from Inventory Visibility Product Team and Jasmine Ye, who will help address Q&A during the event as well as any remaining questions at the end. With that, let's get started. So in terms of agenda, we will cover what is soft reservation in context of inventory visibility service, in what business scenario soft reservation feature can be used, what are some of the constraints of current mechanism of soft reservation, how to address this constraint using new enhancements in soft reservation capabilities. I will then hand it over to Jaicheng, who will walk us through the data storage mechanism in inventory visibility service, the required setup and configuration to use this feature. Then we will also demo soft reservation API using site and warehouse as well as without site and warehouse. In the end, we will share some useful resources to learn more about this feature and have some time for Q&A. So let us first review what is soft reservation. So before we get into details of new enhancements in soft reservation capabilities in IVS, let us quickly recap some of the terminology related to this feature. Soft reservation is a concept in inventory visibility service which allows to reserve a quantity for a product when an order is received. For example, an order is placed from the e-com website. Then the request can be sent instantly to IVS to soft reserve the order quantity. It is still soft reservation because it is not going and reserving directly into the Dynamics 365 SCM ERP, which is the source of the inventory. Later, e-com order gets synced to Dynamics 365 SCM, and that is where it will do the hard reservation and offset reservation. But meantime, to have an accurate view of available on-hand soft reservation capability in IVS is used. To use soft reservation feature in IVS, two measures are typically set up. One physical measure can be created as soft reserved. This measure is used to soft reserve order quantity and provide details of how much quantity is soft reserved so far. Another measure is set up as calculated measure in IVS, which typically referred as available for reservation, meaning what is the available quantity of a product which can be soft reserved when an order is received. It is typically set up as available physical minus whatever quantity is already soft reserved. When the order gets synced from e-com website to Dynamics 365 SCM, an order quantity is reserved in Dynamics 365 SCM that is often considered as reservation or the hard reservation. And then finally, that is when the offset of the soft reservation is also triggered from Dynamics 365 SCM to Inventory Visibility Service. Okay, so now let us review a business scenario and see how soft reservation feature is implemented currently in Inventory Visibility Service. As you can see, we have three applications. On left, we have e-com website or third-party application. On the right, we have Dynamics 365 SCM. And in the middle, we have Inventory Visibility Service. So first step is the process where through integration, product details and pricing details are made available to e-com website so that customer can browse through products and place an order. Also, there is a built-in integration between Dynamics 365 SCM and Inventory Visibility Service, which continuously sync inventory changes from Dynamics 365 SCM to Inventory Visibility Service in near real time. In this case, initially, there are 100 pieces available for product in Warehouse 1, which will be synced to Inventory Visibility Service. Next, in the next step of the process, a new order is placed for 50 quantity. Then, e-com site will call the soft reservation API to check available for reservation quantity for a product in specific warehouse. At this time, available for reservation quantity is 100 pieces in Warehouse 1. So e-com site can instantly soft reserve the order quantity of 50 for that product in that Warehouse 1. As you can see, the soft reserve measure has now changed to 50 quantity, and now available for reservation has reduced to 50 quantity in Warehouse 1. As the order quantity is soft reserved, the reservation ID is sent back to e-com website. Notice that this ecom order has still not yet synced into Dynamics 365 SCM, and available on hand is 100 pieces in Dynamics 365 SCM. Meantime, another order is received on ecom site for, let's say, 50 pieces. Ecom site call the Soft Reservation API to check available for reservation quantity for a product in specific warehouse. At this time, available for reservation quantity is 50 pieces in warehouse 1. So ecom site can instantly soft reserve another order of 50 quantity for that product in WHS1 warehouse. Now you can see soft reserved measure has changed to 100 quantity and available for reservation has reduced to 0 quantity in warehouse 1. So soft reservation ID for the successful reservation will be returned to ecom website. In this way, soft reservation capability can provide accurate view of available inventory when orders are received. Later in the process, the ecom order gets synced into the Dynamics 365 SCM. So when order lines are synced to ecom website, it will have the details of the reservation ID, the inventory dimension, for example, site and warehouse, where the order quantity have been reserved, and will be stored for each sales order line. In Dynamics 365 SCM, when order lines are reserved or hard reserved, either through automatic reservation or distributed order management or maybe release to warehouse process, Dynamics 365 SCM will send offset reservation request instantly to inventory visibility service. So offset reservation criteria in this case has to match the product, the reservation ID, and the inventory dimension, meaning the site and warehouse where the order quantity was soft reserved. So hopefully this flow gives you an understanding of the soft reservation capability in inventory visibility service. Now, let us understand what are the constraints in this process and how soft reservation without site and warehouse will give us more flexibility to overcome some of this constraint. We will again take similar example we reviewed in previous slide. So initially, as you can see, the on hand is 110 across 2 warehouses, warehouse 1 and warehouse 2. The first order is received for 50 pieces. Check on hand against warehouse 1. The 100 pieces are available to reserve. So 50 pieces will be soft reserved and available for reservation now will be 50 pieces in warehouse 1. Second order is received for 60 pieces. So in this case, checking on hand for 60 pieces in warehouse 1. However, only 50 pieces are available for reservation in warehouse 1. Since there are not enough quantity available for reservation, the request will fail. Similarly, let's say third order is received for 60 pieces. Checking on hand for 60 pieces in warehouse 2. However, only 10 pieces are available for reservation in warehouse 2. Since there are not enough quantity available for reservation, the request should fail again. However, if you combine available for reservation across warehouses, then the order quantity can be fulfilled. In order to address this scenario, we have some new enhancements to the soft reservation capability. So let us review how the enhancements to the soft reservation will help with some of the constraints we discussed. So if you see this example, again, initial on hand is 110 across 2 warehouses, warehouse 1 and warehouse 2. The first order is received for 50 pieces. With this feature, checking on hand happens across warehouses. So total of 110 pieces are available to reserve, out of which 50 quantity will be reserved and now available for reservation will be 60 pieces across both the warehouses. Second order is received for 60 pieces. Upon checking on hand for 60 pieces across warehouses, 60 pieces are available to reserve. So another 60 quantity will be soft reserved and now available for reservation will be 0. So as you have noticed, these new enhancements allow querying on hand and soft reservation at the product level versus in the previous case, it allowed to query on hand and soft reserve for specific site and warehouses. So now let us go through the same business scenario we saw earlier with the new enhancements to the soft reservation and identify the differences in the process flow. Again, we have 3 applications: e-com website, Dynamics 365 SCM, and inventory visibility service. Product and pricing details are available to e-com website so that customer can browse products and place an order. Built-in integration between Dynamics 365 SCM and inventory visibility service will continuously sync the inventory changes from Dynamics 365 SCM to inventory visibility service. Notice here, there are 100 pieces available for a product in warehouse 1 and 10 pieces available in warehouse 2, which will be synced to inventory visibility service. Next, order is received for 50 quantity. E-com site call the Soft Reservation API to check for available for reservation quantity for a product across warehouses using these new enhancements. At this time, available for reservation quantity are 110 pieces across both the warehouses. E-com site can instantly soft reserve order of 50 quantity for a product. Soft reserve measured has now changed to 50 quantity, and available for reservation has reduced to 60 quantity if you query on hand across warehouses. Next, the reservation ID is returned back to e-com website. E-com order has still not yet synced to D365, and available on hand is still 110 pieces in Dynamics 365 SCM across two warehouses. Meantime, another order is received on e-com site for, let's say, 60 pieces. E-com site will call the Soft Reservation API to check for the available for reservation quantity for that product across warehouses. At this time, available for reservation quantity is 60 pieces. So e-com site can soft reserve another order of 60 quantity for that product. Soft reserve measure has now changed to 110 quantity, and available for reservation is reduced to 0 quantity, and the soft reservation ID is returned back to the website. Next, e-com order gets synced into the Dynamics 365 SCM. When order lines are synced from e-com website, it will have the details of reservation ID, which will be stored from each sales order line. So this is the difference you will notice. When order lines are synced to Dynamics 365 SCM, only reservation ID will be part of the message and not the inventory dimensions. So this is the first difference you will notice. In Dynamics 365 SCM, when order lines are hard reserved through automatic reservation or DOM or RTW process, quantity will be reserved against specific warehouse. But when Dynamics 365 SCM will send offset reservation request to IVS, it finds the reservation based on the reservation ID and the product. So offsets of reservation criteria in this case only check to match the product and reservation ID and no longer match the inventory dimensions, which was the case in the previous scenario when the order quantity were soft reserved at the warehouse level. So hopefully this gives you an understanding of end-to-end flow and how the new enhancements of the soft reservation capability, how you can query on hand, how you can soft reserve, and finally offset the reservation at the product level. Next, I will now hand it over to Jaicheng to share some of the more details of the data partition, setup and configuration, and demoing this capability. Jaicheng, over to you.
Thank you, Hiren. I'll now take over the rest of this tech talk to introduce how we can configure inventory visibility service to enable making soft reservations as well as other inventory changes without the need to specifying sites and warehouses throughout the process. To begin with, we first introduced the data storage rules inside inventory visibility service. We call it data storage rule or partition rule to describe how the data is grouped inside inventory visibility service. As you may know, in the inventory visibility service cache, the data is currently being stored as inventory visibility service used to have a requirement that each change operation would require a warehouse, including the soft reservation inventory change as well as the allocation API request. The underlying reason for this is that for performance concerns, we need to somehow group the data together and put them into different instances to minimize the accessing time of this data. And to support the scenarios where users need to make inventory operations both with and without warehouses, we now introduce a new set of data storage rule inside inventory visibility service, which we call by product IDs. So now we have two different types of data storage rules. The existing way is to by warehouse, and the new way is to do by product IDs. If you use the newly added way to store the data grouping by product IDs, as site and warehouses are no longer the primary keys where you need to find where your data is located, it is no longer required for inventory change operations. Please note that this will be a global setting which will be determining how the data are being stored. So you cannot do a swapping between these two mechanisms during the after the system has gone live. In order to make changes, you only need to clean out the data and start syncing the data from beginning. In the rest of the tech talk, we will be going through the scenarios to see what the changes are by using these two type of data storage rules. To begin with, we'll be introducing the configuration process of switching the data partition rules. So we will be soon introducing a new page which sets the partition configuration. There will be two options we can choose. The first one and the default one for existing users would be by location, which is by warehouse in the Dynamic 365 SCM's context. And the other one, which we need to take if we want to make soft reservation without site and warehouse, is to use by product IDs. And after changing this from the Power Apps UI, as we do for all the other configuration tables, we need to update configuration to make this change take effect. A notice here is that to update to the new partition by product IDs, there should not be any existing inventory transactions in that environment. To implement this feature on your environment, we need to make a decision on the data storage or partition rule either by warehouse or by product ID in the beginning of your integration process based on the business requirements. So the switching the data partition would require cleanup of inventory data completely in the IVS environment, which will be demo. We'll be doing a demo shortly. But cleanup of configuration is not required. However, hot swapping between these two data storage rules is not supported for the time being, meaning that the only way to switch the rules is to clean up all the inventory data and start data transmission again. This is a public preview feature in the release of April 2024. And if you want a private preview earlier than that time, you can contact our group's email to get the instructions for private previews. And please stay tuned to the YAML post and documentations for more details on this feature. The planned GA time for this feature will be July of 2024. So let us go over the process of how we change the data partition rule. In the newly introduced UI, there will be an entry of data partition rule in the navigation bar. And we need to change the by location or by product IDs. However, if users are doing a change or mistakenly change it when there are still inventory data exists, the change will not take effect. As we change the configuration with data exists and do update configuration, we will find there is a validation exception for the configuration update, saying that we cannot change the partition configuration when the environment is not empty. If you see this data and believes that changing the partition configuration is still what you want to do, what you need to do is to go back to the Power Apps UI, going to the admin settings, click the Manage button on Delete All Inventory Data, and follow the subsequent instructions provided on the user interface. And after that, to validate whether the configuration update is successful, you can use the Postman API to get the latest configurations to see if it has changed by product ID or by location based on what you selected. If you do see the changes are taking place, that means the partition configuration are updated successfully. So with the steps introduced on how we can change the partition configuration, we'll be going through the demo process of how we make a soft reservation without sites and warehouses and make comparison with the existing way of how we're doing them with sites and warehouses. We will be using the same example as Hiren did a few minutes earlier in this session. So let us suppose we are using a product t-shirt and we have two warehouses. In warehouse 1, we have 100 t-shirts, and in warehouse 2, we have 10 t-shirts correspondingly. We'll be going through the following scenarios. Firstly, we will make a comparison of how we are making reservations with and without warehouses. And with each of these reservation mechanisms, we'll be using inventory queries after reservation to see how how the data partition rule will affect the query behavior. The formula we are going to use is the available to reserve equals to the initial on-hand quantity we added for these two warehouses, subtract the soft reserve quantities. So recall the existing way where we do soft reservation, we do an inventory update, or we do an allocation with site and warehouses. In the current setting, inventory visibility service will need users to specify a site and location ID when they do an inventory change up. In this example from UI, we are reserving 50 t-shirts in warehouse 1. The reservation will succeed, and there will be 50 pieces remaining available to reserve in warehouse 1. This is what the API request for soft reserve in site 1 and warehouse 1 will look like. We begin with a unique ID to mark that this is a new request, and we specify a organization ID of USMF, which is the data area ID inside Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management, and we specify the product ID. Most importantly, in the dimensions field, we need to specify a concrete site and warehouse ID and location ID. We cannot leave them empty. After that, we specify to reserve 50 quantities, as well as the data source and modifier for soft reservation. In order not to reserve what is more than available in the warehouse, we need to mark the if check available for reserve field as true. So this is the process how we do a soft reservation. We begin with our configuration and notice that there is available to reserve calculated measure. We got to see the detail of calculated measure. It means we first add the IV on hand and then subtract the reservation of IV soft reserved from data source IV. And we'll be making reservation. We first add on hand for t-shirts. We add 100 pieces for warehouse 1. And we'll be adding 10 pieces for warehouse 2 later. As we only need the on-hand quantity in this formula, we'll be omitting the fields for other measures. So now, as we can see, the 100 pieces succeeds, and we change to 10 pieces to warehouse 2. So now we begin with the same example, exactly the same example as here introduced just now. We'll be making reservations. Keep in mind that we need to specify a site ID and location ID in this case because our system is still configured to be storing data by location IDs. And we make the soft reservation against IV and soft reserve and check the available for reservation. And here we can see that the 50 pieces reservation succeeded. And now we'll be trying to make 60 more reservations. As we do not want to specify warehouse 1 or 2, we go to delete site and warehouse ID from our request to see what is going to happen. And it will say that if there are 0 quantities available for reservation, which are not enough. So one thing you may be noticing is that the soft reservation here, we still have 60 pieces available, but when we're making the 60 reservation, it will say 0 available in the site and warehouses. That is because we're configuring a system of storing data by location ID, which we'll be going through later. Now let us see what will happen if we switch the data storage mechanism to by product ID and make reservation without site and warehouses. So we begin with the same example. The only difference here is that we are leaving site and location. We are not specifying a site and location ID. And if we make the 50 pieces reservation here, it will succeed. The difference lies in the on-hand results. If we change the data storage rule and it's not going to specify a warehouse, the inventory, the IVI system will not automatically pick a warehouse for us. Instead, it will temporarily storing the reservation results in an empty warehouse where you have 50 reserved and 50 and minus 50 available. We'll sum together for the same product across all these results. we will see that there are 50 reserved and 60 available. The 60 comes from the 110 availables from both warehouses, subtracts plus the minus 50 available from the temporary results. So what is the difference in terms of the API requests when we are making soft reservations with and without warehouses? We can see from this page that the other fields are identical, except that the dimensions in dimensions field, if we are trying to make reservations without site and location ID, we just simply not specify them. We exclude them from our requests. And here is the process after reserving the two orders of 50 and 60 each correspondingly without specifying site and warehouse. We begin with the on-hand of two warehouses, warehouse 1 with 100 and warehouse 2 with 10. And the second step, we reserve 50 without warehouse. So the summed result will be 50 reserved and 60 available. And we want to reserve the 60 pieces without warehouse again. And there will be 110 reserved and 0 available in this case. So notice that the key takeaway here is that if we are trying to make a soft reservation without site and warehouse, then inventory visibility service will never determine it for us. It will leave it empty. So again, let us go to a Postman example to see how the soft reservation without site and location ID process works. So we omit the process of refreshing the data as well as setting up the configurations. So if we just delete the dimensions here, we'll find out that the reservation actually is success for both 50 and 60 pieces. So what are the results if we make inventory query in this case? Because we are no longer grouping the data by warehouse, we can make two different types of queries. The first one is to query the total inventory without grouping by site and warehouses. In the existing way of storing data by warehouse ID, when we make a reservation, when we make an inventory query without specifying group by site and location ID, grouping by site and location ID is always compulsory. But in our case, we can notice that there is only one result, despite there are multiple warehouses. So by switching the data to the new partition rule, we can find out that the system will sum together all the results from different sites and warehouses. And optionally, we can add back the group by values of site and location ID. Then it will present the almost identical results as we did in the storage rule of by warehouses. As we see in this case, we have three different results, three different entries of the result. The first two are for the on-hand for warehouse 1 and 2 correspondingly, and the last one is for storing the temporary results of making a soft reservation without warehouse. So a slight difference here to notice is that the default query behavior changes after we switch around the data partition rule. If we're using the by warehouse, which all of our existing users are using, a inventory query will always group the results by site and warehouses, with despite user may not be specifying the group by values in their queries. However, by using product IDs, a query will no longer group by site and warehouses by default. Users need to add the group by values explicitly by themselves to use the same group by site and warehouse capabilities as they did for the case of grouping data by warehouses. So, a brief comparison of the API request differences of storing data by warehouse and by product IDs. There are four different types of operations we're comparing. The first one is to query on hand without product IDs. In the by warehouse case, we are supporting this kind of query, which will be returning the result of all the products in the same warehouse. However, in the case of by product IDs, as the data are stored primarily grouping by product IDs, a product must be specified to inventory queries. Next, we'll be comparing the query on hand without site and warehouse. As we illustrated in the last page, they're both supported. The only exception is that in the case of by product ID, users have a control of whether they want to group data by sites and warehouses. And in the reservation case, which we showed in our demos, in the by warehouse case, user always need to specify a warehouse. But in the by product ID, we provide the users the flexibility of not reserving to a concrete warehouse. But notice that the reservation always takes place with a specific product ID. So you need to specify a product ID in both of these cases. With these features introduced, let us go through some best practice advices for do's and don'ts when you do an implementation of soft reservation using inventory visibility service. The most important thing to keep in mind is never make mixed reservation requests. So for example, we have a counterexample here where in warehouse 1 we have 100 available and warehouse 2 we have 10 available. The first reservation will follow our example to reserve without a warehouse. So in the reservation result, we will see there is an empty warehouse which is used primarily to store the reservation data. There will be 50 reserved in our warehouse and 60 available altogether. However, we can make a second reservation of 100 pieces in warehouse 1. It will succeed. The reason it will succeed is that to minimize the searching time, we always check for the available to reserve with the most specific inventory dimensions specified. So if a user specifies that he wants to make a reservation in warehouse 1, then only the available for reservation in warehouse 1 will be checked. However, in this case, there is a negative 50 available to reserve in empty warehouse, which will not be taken into consideration in this case. So it will succeed as well. But if we go back to consider the actual business scenario, there's only 60 pieces left in the warehouses that can be reserved. The reason for this conflict is that user first make reservation without warehouse and then make a reservation specifying a concrete warehouse. Due to the way IVS is doing this, we cannot let users to make mixed reservations. So we should always keep in mind that when we do the implementation, we should never make mixed reservation for the same item. The inventory dimensions used for soft reservation should be consistent for each item in the system in the same company. And another topic of best practice advices is the consideration of making offsets for data storage rule by product ID inside of Dynamic 365 supply chain management. The reason for the requirement of making reservation and offsetting in the same warehouse in the current system is that soft reservation requests and offset requests are required to be in the same partition. However, if we change the data partition rule to by product IDs, then basically all the same product ID will go to the same partition. So reservation requests and offset requests, if they have a matching reservation ID, inventory visibility service will be able to match them together. So for example, in a more complex case where we determine and update the sales line in Dynamic 365 supply chain management, after running other tools like DOM, this scenario will still be supported in the offset reservation based on product ID and reservation ID under the data storage rule of by product IDs. So these are the contents we are planning to introduce today of making soft reservation for inventory visibility service without specifying a site ID and warehouse ID. And notice that this change applies to other inventory operations as well. You can find more references with the links on this page. Firstly, please stay tuned to our Microsoft documentations, which will be showing you the latest instructions on how to use this feature when the feature is released. And we have a sample code for inventory visibility add-in on the GitHub repository link showing this page. You can visit our repository and download the examples that you can play with open source tools. And you can find the previous tech talks and for the Microsoft Dynamics blogs. Also, please join our Yammer group for finance and operations and for the inventory visibility channel as well. If you have comments to us, feel free to drop us emails, post in the Yammer group, or go to vote in the ideas site to ask for the features that you believe will solve your problems. This is the content for today's Tech Talk session. We're going through Q&A.
Thanks, Jai Cheng. I just wanted to announce a couple of things. Jai Cheng today showed the capabilities in demo where he was updating the configuration for partition through the Postman APIs. But when this will be in public preview and when it will be GA, you should be able to change the configuration through user interface, the way how you are doing it today in the Power Apps of Inventory Visibility Service. But this is currently in private preview. So all the checking of reservation, checking of inventory on hand, as well as changing the partition is all happening through API only. So if you want to try this in private preview, you will have to use APIs. But as we go into the public preview and GA, you will have some of the capabilities to do it from the user interface as well. The user interface piece is still being worked upon. So we'll announce it as it gets ready. We have received few questions. I'll just go through. We have responded to, I think, most of them, but we'll go through anyway. So first question which we received was, what will happen if after order 1 and 2 are being placed, SMB reserve the same goods in FNO directly? And I think Jasmine has already responded. If there is another order received directly in D365 SCM, then basically you can use the out-of-box capability of Soft Reservation in D365 SCM. If you use that feature, basically when you try to soft reserve in D365 SCM, it will check against the available for reservation against your IVS. And if there are already soft reservation done and there is not enough available on hand, it will restrict you to do the soft reservation in D365 SCM. So that is an out-of-box capability. So if you have that scenario where your orders are flowing from multiple channels, maybe from website, you are also creating orders from D365, and you still want to have that soft reservation check in place, then you can use out-of-the-box soft reservation capability in D365 SCM. Okay, so I think the next question is, SCM will receive a reservation ID per line, but without inventory dimension and warehouse. Therefore, it is then up to SCM to decide which warehouse to assign. Is that right? Yes, that's the correct understanding. With these new capabilities, you are reserving at the product level in Inventory Visibility Service. So you will have the reservation ID. And when your order gets synced from e-com website or third-party application to sales order line, you will basically carry the reservation ID, and you will not have any inventory dimensions in this case because you have reserved against the product ID itself. And then when the sales order lines are getting created in D365 and either DOM process or release to warehouse process, whatever is the mechanism you are using in D365 SCM for the hard reservation, that is when the actual warehouse will be assigned. And basically, as soon as the hard reservation is done, it will also trigger the offset reservation in Inventory Visibility Service. So basically, it will use the product ID and reservation ID combination to offset the reservation. It will no longer match the inventory dimensions for your offsetting the reservation. Hope that makes sense. The next question is, can warehouse at different entities in D365 be linked to IVS so that soft reservation can be done across both the entities and warehouse? Jasmine has already responded to this one. You can certainly sync all of the inventory data across different legal entities and different warehouses. However, you will only be able to query against warehouses in the same particular legal entity. So you still have to specify the legal entity ID in order to query on hand across warehouses. You cannot query on hand across warehouses, across legal entities. The organization ID or the legal entity ID is still one of the primary key for querying and reservation. Then the next question is reservation is working with sales order lines? What about any other types of transactions, inventory journals? Jasmine, you want to take this question?
Yeah, I think for soft reservation scenarios, it's working with sales order lines. And about other types of transactions, we do have work item being worked on right now. That's about adjustment journal. Yeah. And there will be more transaction types coming on the way, but they will be planned and will be rolled out bit by bit. So again, if any transaction type is very important for your scenario solution, feel free to create the idea on Idea Portal. So we will have the priority planned together with the PM team according to the vote.
Thank you, Jasmine. So yeah, definitely we have soft reservation, the sales order line. Inventory adjustment journal is something which we are already working on. But if you have any other requirement of any other journals, it would be great to have an ideas or post your queries or feedback on the Yammer channel. The next question is, can D365 SCM take advantage of any soft reservation in the available inventory calls for the automatic reservation, or is there a roadmap to have a D365 SCM inventory calls hit the IVS APIs directly? I think we have already discussed this. This is a similar scenario, like if you are doing, if your orders are coming from multiple channels, in this case, the orders are flowing from e-com order, or if you're directly entering the orders into D365 SCM, you need a soft reservation capability in D365 SCM, then you can use the soft reservation out-of-box functionality, which can actually check available for reservation against IBS. So if there are not enough available on hand, you will be basically restricted. You can set up how you want to proceed, whether you want to get restricted or you still want to reserve. So those are the capabilities available, and there's a good documentation out there as well. So please, hopefully for this requirement, you should be able to leverage that capability.
Yeah, I think one more comment on this one is, I think for the sales order, it's already implemented out of box. Yes. And we do have some customers. I did receive some feedback from some partner conversation saying that they have the similar requirement for transfer order, right? It's very similar, but today it's not out of box available in FinOps. Again, if you need that, you need to write some customization. But if you would like it to be out of implementation, create an idea so we can plan it according to the votes.
Yeah, sounds good. Is ISV out of the box integrated with Microsoft e-commerce solution? Jasmine, you want to take this?
Yes, if this is regarding the D365 commerce, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, if that's the case, we already have out-of-box integration already today.
Yeah, so basically for D365 commerce, the back office is finance and operations. So from the back office standpoint, everything remains as is. You are going to integrate inventory visibility service with back office. But we do have a capability, new capabilities with the CSUs. So you should be able to query on hand directly from CSUs, inventory visibility service. And you should be able to do available for reservation, and you should be able to do a soft reservation and all of those capabilities from CSU. We have a good documentation around this capability. So please do check. But yes, out of the box integration is available for D365 commerce.
Yeah, I think today it's already a public preview feature for the commerce. You can go ahead to check the documentation there and enable the feature in the commerce. Once you enable that, the inventory check and the inventory adjust behind the CSU is actually integrating with IB already.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have answered all of the questions. Please feel free to post any questions you still have, or you can always reach out to us on Yammer group. But I think if there are no more questions, then we'll probably conclude today's session. So thank you to our presenter and our audience for your participation and your feedback.